Rookie 1 from Carlsen, and Aronyan writes that this move greatly surprised him. Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress. The waiting is almost over. As I publish this video on Monday the 16th of March 2020, we're only one day away from the start of the Candidates Tournament. It is going to start, and that is very, very exciting. The Candidates Tournament is one of the few events that have not been cancelled, and in these difficult times with the coronavirus, it's nice to have this event to distract us from all the problems around the world. I will do daily videos on the Candidates Tournament. I think that most chess channels will show the game of the day and show that in detail. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to show all 4 games in one video, which will not be longer than approximately 15 minutes. I won't be able to show every game in detail in that time frame, but I will show some key positions. And that way, in 15 minutes, you will get an overview of what happened in that round. I don't expect many chess channels to do this, so I hope to stand out in this way, and that may help in growing my channel. I hope that you will follow the Candidates Tournament with me, and that if you like my videos, that you will share them with your chess contacts. I've done a few countdown videos on the Candidates Tournament. I've given a historical overview of the history of the Candidates Tournament and candidate matches. If you haven't seen it yet, I will give that historical overview here again. If you have seen it already, then you can skip to the game. I will show the first step of Magnus Carlsen on his way to the world title when he was only 16 years old. And if you want to skip to that game, you can find the timestamp of when that game starts up here. It's a game against Levon Aronyan. The tournament in London 1883 was not an official Candidates Tournament, but it was won by Wilhelm Steinitz, and second place was Johannes Zukertort, and it was decided that these 2 players would play the first official match for the World Championship 3 years later. Wilhelm Steinitz came in second place in the St. Petersburg tournament of 1895-1896, behind world champion Emanuel Lasker, and because of that result, Steinitz was allowed to challenge Lasker for the world title. Paul Keres won the tournament in the Netherlands in 1938 and gained the right to challenge world champion Alexander Alyechin for the world title that way. But that match never happened because of World War II. The first official Candidates Tournament was held in Budapest in Hungary in 1950, with the tiebreak being held in Moscow. David Bronstein won and challenged world champion Botvinnik for the world title. Vasily Smyslov won 2 Candidates Tournaments. The famous one of Zurich 1953 and also Amsterdam 1956, and he qualified to challenge Botvinnik. Misha Tal won in Yugoslavia 1959, and it was his turn to challenge Botvinnik. Tigran Petrosyan won the Candidates Tournament in Curaçao 1962, and he gained the right to challenge Botvinnik, and he beat Botvinnik the year after. Then the candidate cycle went from Candidates Tournaments to Candidates Matches, and Boris Spassky won both in Tbilisi 1965 and Kiev 1968 to challenge Petrosyan. Bobby Fischer beat Petrosyan in the final in Buenos Aires in 1971, and it was his turn to challenge the world champion. He beat Spassky. Moscow 1974 was won by Anatoly Karpov. He beat Viktor Korchnoi, and because Fischer did not defend his title, Karpov became the 12th world champion. Korchnoi also won 2 candidate cycles, the finals in Belgrade and Mirano. Both times he lost to Karpov in a World Championship match. And then the Kasparov era started. Vilnius 1984 was won by him. He challenged Karpov and dethroned Karpov after 3 matches. But Karpov was not finished yet. In Linares in 1987 he beat Andrei Sokolov to qualify for match 4 against Kasparov. And by beating Jan Timman in Malaysia in 1990, he qualified for match 5. Then the Karpov era finished. Nigel Short beat him in the semi-finals and beat Jan Timman in the finals in San Lorenzo de El Escorial in 1993, and it was his turn to challenge Kasparov. Then the chess world was broken in 2. I will only show here what happened to the classical cycle. Vishwanathan Anand won Las Palmas 1995 and challenged Kasparov in the same year for the world title. Cazorla in Spain 1998 was a strange one. Alexei Sirov beat Vladimir Kramnik in a match, gained the right to challenge Kasparov, but that match never happened. Kramnik did get his chance. In the year 2000 he played Kasparov and beat him in London. Peter Leko won Dortmund 2002 and qualified to play Kramnik. That match happened 2 years later and the score was 7-0. Kramnik remained world champion. Then we had a World Championship tournament again. The qualifier was Elista 2007, where Aronian, Gelfand, Grishuk and Leko qualified. I put it in red because I will show a game from that qualification event. Kramnik, Anand, Svitler and Morozevich already qualified directly. Those 8 players played in the World Championship tournament and Anand won. Veselin Topalov beat Gata Kamsky in Sofia 2009 to gain the right to challenge Anand for the world title. And in 2011 it was Gelfand's turn. He won Kazan. Then the Carlsen era started in 2013. Magnus Carlsen won the Candidates tournament in London and qualified to challenge Anand. He beat him, but Anand wasn't finished. Anand won the Khanty-Mansiysk Candidates tournament in 2014 for a rematch against Carlsen. Moscow 2016 was won by Karyakin and Berlin 2018 by Caruana. They both played Carlsen, held the classical match to 6-all and both lost in a tiebreak. So there we go. Yekaterinburg 2020. Who will win? These are the 8 players that will do battle. From the top left, Wang Hao from China. He won the Grand Swiss. Next to him, Anish Giri from the Netherlands. He qualified by rating. Fabiano Caruana from the USA qualified by being the runner-up in the last World Championship match. And Jan Nepomniachtchi qualified through the Grand Prix. Bottom right is Ding Liren. He qualified through the World Cup. Next to him, Maxime Vacher-Lagrave, a last-minute stand-in for Timur Rajabov, who dropped out because of the coronavirus threat. Next to him, Alexander Grishuk, who also qualified through the Grand Prix. And bottom left is Kirill Alexeyenko, the wildcard. But first, let's go back to 2007, when 16 players did battle for 4 spots in the World Championship tournament. It was played in a knockout format, and here we see the results. 6 classical games and a tiebreak with rapid and blitz games if needed. Levon Aronian beat Magnus Carlsen. It was Carlsen's first step on the ladder towards the World Championship. He had played 2 years previously in the FIDE World Championship, but these were his first steps towards the Classical World Championship. As you can see, it was a very tense match with 4 decisive games in the 6 classical games. A tiebreak was needed, and Aronian needed the blitz games to qualify. Shirov beat Adams also in the tiebreak. Peter Leko destroyed Mikhail Gorevich 3.5-half, and Bareyev got the best of Judith Polgar. Wrublewski beat Ponomariov, Grishuk beat Malachov, Gelfand needed a tiebreak to beat Kazimjanov, and Kamsky beat Bakro, also very convincingly. Those 8 players went through to the second round, and Aronian beat Shirov to qualify for the World Championship tournament. Leko beat Bareyev, Gelfand beat Kamsky, and Grishuk beat Wrublewski. That last match was the only one that needed a tiebreak. These 4 players joined Kramnik, Anand, Svitler and Morozevich to play in the World Championship tournament in 2007, which was won by Anand. In this video we're going to look at the first classical game between Carlsen and Aronian in the first round of the candidate matches. It is the 27th of May 2007. Carlsen is white, Aronian is black. At the time Carlsen had a rating of 26.93 and Aronian of 27.59. And Carlsen opened with the e-pawn. e5, knight f3, knight c6, and we see a Ruy Lopez, a Spanish. The bishop was kicked, went back to a4, knight f6, Carlsen castled, bishop e7, and d3. I'm using the analysis of Levon Aronian himself from the magazine New in Chess from this issue. And I'm also using the analysis from international master Theo Hommeles in this magazine Schaaknieuws. On this move, Levon Aronian said that he had hoped for rook e1, as then he has a chance to play his beloved martial attack after b5, bishop b3, castling, c3 and then d5, the martial attack from black. But as mentioned, d3 was played by Carlsen instead of rook e1. b5, bishop back, d6, a4, rook b8. Carlsen took on b5, Aronian took back, and knight c3. As Aronian explains, the knight is needed on c3 in order to meet bishop e6 with knight to d5. Aronian castled. h3, a useful move, says Aronian. He does not explain why in the magazine. At least it's taking bishop g4 out of the position, pinning the knight. That's no longer an option for black. And here knight b4 was played by Aronian, and he says bishop e6 is the alternative. Knight e2 on its way to g3, a normal maneuver in a Ruy Lopez, and c5. There goes the knight, bishop e6, and that bishop was swapped off. c3 kicking the knight back, knight c6, and here Aronian writes, I was happy to reach a middle game where the approximate plans and ideas of both sides were familiar to me. Rook e1 from Carlsen, and Aronian writes that this move greatly surprised him, as he had thought his opponent had decided to manage without this move. Queen d7, a normal consolidating move in this type of setup, says Aronian, and d4, which Aronian calls an ambitious decision. Carlsen probably did not imagine that by giving up the center it would be black who would gain the better chances. And Aronian gives bishop d2, a developing move, which is a better option in this position. But d4 was played, Aronian took, Carlsen took back, and now c4, giving white the center and gaining a pawn majority on the queen side. Since black has an active idea involving knight b4, giving white the center is not dangerous for him, explains Aronian. So black has the majority on the queen side, but white has a very strong pawn center. Carlsen played bishop g5, h6, and now d5. Aronian says this attempt to gain relief through exchanges does not lead to the desired result. And again he gives bishop d2 as the alternative, the best move in the position. What happened after d5? Aronian took, and now Carlsen took on f6. If you play e takes d5 instead, then there is knight b4, and black's initiative is too strong, says Aronian. So Carlsen took on f6 instead, bishop takes, and queen takes d5 check. The rook interposed, and now knight f5 is a move that does not work, said Aronian, and Carlsen must have seen this. It's attacking the pawn on d6 twice. Anand shows this variation, which wins material for black. Knight b4 hitting the queen, so the queen has to take. Queen takes, knight takes, hitting the rook on f7. The rook goes to d7, counter-attacking the knight. e5 protecting the knight, and then knight c2 with a fork, winning an exchange for black. So all that after rook f7 and then knight f5, which is not possible. Queen d2 was played by Carlsen. And now Aronian says, I should not play b4 here. It looks logical to push that majority on the queen side, but then he gives this variation, rook e to c1, and then c3, and many times the players take on c3, and here Aronian says white is not worse. Carlsen has compensation for the exchange in this position. So then after queen d2 and then b4, Aronian played knight e5 instead. It was taken, bishop takes, knight e2, rook b to f8, attacking the f2 pawn with two rooks. So rook f1 was played. Black, as said, has a majority on the queen side. Carlsen has a majority in the center, which he wants to put in motion, starting with f4. But with an amazing move, Aronian prevents this. Look at this move. Rook f7 to f3. What is this? Well, it is a blockading move, and a great blockading move. The rook cannot be taken, as that will fatally weaken white's king's position, as we'll see in a minute. Also, rook takes h3 is a threat, which would break down the protection around white's king. Why can you not take the rook? Let's have a look. G takes f3, then there is rook takes f3, and the threat is queen takes h3 and then checkmate on h2. This bishop is a very important piece. So white will have to go for a perpetual here. And the variation given goes as follows. Queen d5 check, king h7, rook a8, trying to set up a perpetual check against black's king. But then black takes on h3, threatening checkmate. And white has a few checks, like this. But after queen e8 check and g6, there are no more checks, and the white king will be checkmated. So after rook f3, you cannot take the rook. Carlsen saw that and played rook a3. It doesn't work, but white was already in trouble. Aronian took, b takes, and now black has a deadly passed pawn on c4. Queen c6, attacking the e4 pawn, knight d4, and if you now take the pawn, then white can take on b5. So Aronian chose to take the knight. And he said, since I saw that it was very difficult for white to hold on to both a and e pawns, I did not bother to look for other moves. Carlsen took back and rook a8, attacking the a3 pawn. Aronian gives queen b2, the last chance to confuse matters, he says. But Carlsen played rook a1 instead. c3, there goes that passed pawn. Queen b4, queen c5. Trading queens does not help white, so Carlsen gave a check. King stepped aside. Rook a2 and rook a4, attacking the e4 pawn. Both white pieces have to keep protecting the a pawn. You cannot protect the e pawn with f3. That is illegal because of the queen on c5 and the king on g1. Carlsen decided on rook e2, protecting the e pawn, but it cost him the a pawn. Queen d1, rook back, and Carlsen resigned here. The connected passed pawns are too strong. A great start from Levon Aronian, winning the first game of the match with the black pieces. But Carlsen came back, and as I showed you, the match went on for a long time, a total of 12 games, and it was only in the blitz games that Aronian got the best of Carlsen and went through to the next round, in which he beat Alexei Shirov, and that way Levon Aronian qualified for the 2007 World Championship Tournament. I hope you are as excited about the start of the Candidates Tournament as I am. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel and please leave a comment. I will read them all and I will reply to them all. If you like this video, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter and on Facebook. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.